Over the last several weeks, there have been many rumors about what's happening at Leatherman, even some leaks talking about new multi-tools, a new wave, charge being discontinued, and even a utility knife competitor to the Milwaukee Fastback. But earlier this week, the official announcement came out and there were no new multi-tools. Instead, Leatherman released knives, just knives, and 5 of them to be exact. And the internet immediately caught on fire. So I'm Taylor Martin, this is Deep Cuts, and we are going to unpack that announcement and your reactions and try to get to the bottom of what is happening at Leatherman. With that said, let's do the damn thing. All right, first up, we want to hear what you guys had to say about these Leatherman knives. We actually got to go see them in Portland a few weeks ago, so we've had hands-on. We have them here. We know what they're all about and have known for a while, but your reaction is what we want to talk about today. And I also want to give some insight as to what is going on at Leatherman and how this affects them and their multi-tools and the whole business as best I can. I'm not Leatherman, but I have seen behind closed doors, which is a rare opportunity for someone in my position. So what we're going to call this is Knife Court, Leatherman versus the people. All right, so first, this is a pretty common sentiment that I've seen. This is a crazy company decision. Come on, you have huge expertise in developing multi-tools and you're throwing it away. What's wrong with you? The whole world of EDC followers and handyman gave you hundreds of valuable suggestions and wishes. Fuck them all. Great idea. I feel like the marketing is killing the artists, designers, and engineer thinking. First up, having been to Leatherman, I can only tell you so much, but I can tell you that these knives have nothing to do with the multi-tool business. It's actually like a whole new arm of Leatherman. They have a whole new facility, and all of the multi-tools are continuing at the same pace, maybe even a higher pace than they were before.
We did it in a separate building and with a separate manufacturing process because here we have very high levels of automation, we have high levels of document control and engineering and all these quality functions so that we can run multiple shifts all these days a year, and we're organizing hundreds of millions of parts come together here. Whereas in the knife cell, the philosophy is different. We use all flexible manufacturing processes so that we can be nimble and incorporate not only design feedback from consumer preferences, but also engineering if we discover ways to improve the product or ways to improve the processes to manufacture the product. So we're running flexible manufacturing over there.
So the knives are not taking away from the multi-tools in any capacity. And I can only say so much, but I can say for certain that I've had hands-on with a new user-requested multi-tool. I can't say much else now, but you will hear more about that in the future. And I know you guys are gonna like that. I genuinely think it's great. I can't do much to quell your fears about Leatherman just throwing it all away, other than to say the knife business at Leatherman is a totally different vertical, and it's not even in the same building as multi-tools. We went there, we toured the factory. They're not throwing it all away, they're just trying something new. And this is actually not the first time Leatherman has made knives either. They have the K&2 Free Series, which is a just knife-based multi-tool, but they've had the Crater was a knife from them, and they have many other just knives that they've made over the years.
We make 1,200 knives an hour for the last number of decades, I don't know what it is. So then we entered the knife business in 2005, and we've been steadily making knives since then. The line of knives that we're discussing here, we've been working on them for about 2 years.
Actually, it was news to me. We walked through a history tunnel at Leatherman, and they had several just knives on the wall dating back to the 90s, 80s? It was early 90s. Either way, they've been making knives, just dedicated knives, for a long time. And I would say that they haven't always gotten it right. I don't even know if they ever have, but this is much closer to getting it right than any of those previous ones. And this one actually is really, really nice. We'll come back to this in a bit. To answer where these are coming from, these are from the launch videos on Leatherman's YouTube channel, as well as Max Level's YouTube comments and some Reddit comments. And we asked for some questions and input and thoughts over on Instagram as well. So these are just coming from all over the internet into one place. The next one says, the pricing is insane for knives that look and function exactly like Wee, Kaiser, Civivi, etc. $300 entry-level folders was a mistake. I don't think this person's talking about fixed blades, but I have a big disagreement about the price of the fixed blades, and we'll dive into that. The folders, I think it's interesting to say that the pricing is insane. It is high. These are not cheap knives, and they're not intended to be cheap knives, but there isn't really a direct comparison with this and anything else. And one of the biggest sentiments, and there's probably another comment that I've selected here that talks about it, is that they used steel for the handles. There was one thing that I didn't think of at the time, and it's because most of the handles that we're dealing with these high-end knives are typically titanium, so corrosion is not really a point of interest because titanium doesn't corrode. Steel can. So you're using a blade steel like MagnaCut, which is highly corrosion resistant, with steel hardware and steel handles that can corrode. I think that's a fair thing to say. It's not wrong, but also a lot of other knives, say like a PM2, has steel liners. So I don't think it's like the nail in the coffin. It's not the end all be all. It is an interesting choice because when I first handled this knife, I was like, why steel?
They're handles and frames all in one, right? So that is a 416 stainless steel handle that we've literally machined out of a block of steel into the frame. And so inside and outside are machined. So the outside is surfaced for the aesthetic that you see there. And by making it out of solid metal, we're able to make it thin, and to make it lightweight, which you might notice, the inside is completely cored out. There's an hour of CNC machining time in each knife. We have 10 CNC machining centers out there. So you can do the math. We can make about 10 knives an hour with this facility. Yeah, and we chose steel over titanium or something else because honestly, steel is stronger. And for the amount of time that we spent, I mean, rather than start with a titanium material, we started with steel, A, because you can buy steel from the US supplier, B, because when you machine it out, you get all the strength properties of steel, but you can get the weight down to be comparable to what it would be if it was made out of titanium slabs.
That's their reasoning behind it. And I also asked why only the front and back of the knife are Cerakoted, and the reason for that, they actually polish off the Cerakote around the edges so that you know it's steel, which is a choice. I think a lot of people are probably worried that the weight of these knives, because they are steel, is heavy, but they have done an insane amount of pocket milling on both of these folders, and they are slightly heavier than, say, an aluminum comparison. So I weighed the ProTech Malibu just a minute ago, and I weighed this. This is 3 point something, really like close to 3 ounces, and this is 3.8. So it's about 25% heavier than an aluminum knife. Not even a titanium knife. Most of the titanium knives are right around the same weight, maybe 3.5. So a little bit heavier than titanium. You wouldn't even notice. The biggest question there is the corrosion resistance. So the next comment says, Leatherman making Benchmade look like a reasonably priced brand. So I have the two Leatherman knives here, which are both $300. And then I have 4 Benchmade knives from their like range of folding knife prices without considering gold class, because that's a whole different territory. But if we want to go through the pricing, we have $300 for these steel top liner button actuated knives from Leatherman in MagnaCut, and then we have Bug Out Mini, the Daybreak version. This one is $180, so a little bit more than half the price of these Leatherman knives, but it is in Grivery, not a metal handle. It has partial liners that end about right here, just past that screw, and it's made mostly of Grivery, which I imagine is injection molded. So very cheap once you get past your initial startup cost of the mold. Then we have this one right here, the 940 in burnt copper or whatever it's called. This knife is $300 for an aluminum handled knife with MagnaCut steel. So a pretty fair comparison. You're basically comparing crossbar and aluminum with top actuated button and steel. And then we get into this aluminum bug out, which is S90V and $400. It's also aluminum handle. This is a $400 bug out because of aluminum and the rich light inlay scale option, I guess. And then we have the mini narrows. So there's a full-size narrows and the mini. The mini in DLC, this knife right here is $580. So I don't think Leatherman is really making Benchmade look like the cheaper option. Benchmade does have more affordable options, but they are Grivery handled knives. Anything that is aluminum typically is going to be closer to that $300 price point and beyond. But let's take a second to look at another knife company that makes a very good knife. It is button actuated, but it is a plunge lock, not a top access liner or top actuated liner. This is the ProTech Malibu, and this is an aluminum handle with MagnaCut. Actually, this one's not MagnaCut. This is CPM 20CV, but I also have a MagnaCut in a Wharncliffe. I just have this one because it's a similar blade shape. This knife is $300 on carry commission, which is my store. I cross-referenced with ProTech and Blade HQ and many other places. You can get discounted ProTech Malibus in black for like $220, but the standard price is about $290 to $330 on a base ProTech Malibu. They go up to $500 based on handle material and beyond, but in general, this is a $300 knife from an American manufacturer, and I can keep doing this. The ones that people recommend or are suggesting are similarly priced or better priced than these Leatherman knives are like the Hogue Deca, which I still don't understand how Hogue makes that knife for that price. I don't get it. They have beat everybody on the pricing of that knife. The Bel Air from Kershaw, it's American made. I don't understand how they're doing it at that price, and it's the only explanation has to be the sheer volume at which they're making the knife. An aluminum handled Kershaw Bel Air, Magna Cut. This knife, I believe, is around 200 bucks. This was a limited edition, so this one's a little bit more expensive. And this Hogue Deca is probably like a $300 Hogue Deca because I have aftermarket scales that cost as much as the knife did originally. This one came with brown G10 or Grivory scales. I bought it on sale for $90. It doesn't make sense, but this is the exception to the rule. The vast majority of knives made in America, we talked about this last week in Deep Cuts, are going to be $300 and beyond, especially if they're titanium, premium, Magna Cut, anything like that. There are exceptions to the rule, but they are few and far between, and they're typically not going to be metal handled, milled, titanium, Magna Cut, or in this case, steel. But there is no direct comparison between a steel handled American made knife like this one. This is the only one I know of. I don't know what to tell you there. You have to value steel versus titanium. And I know one of the reasons, since a lot of people are gonna ask, one of the reasons Leatherman chose steel, it comes down to titanium. They want to make as much as they can here in America, so they sourced American steel to use in the handles instead of titanium, which if you're using titanium, titanium can almost only be sourced from China. And there's also like Russian titanium, and it's from other places, but I guess the point is that Leatherman wanted to source this thing as much as humanly possible from the US. Just a couple of others that we'll rapid fire here. We have the Mariner 2 from Tactile. This is a liner lock in Magna Cut, $400. We have a McNeese PM Mac 2 in Magna Cut. This one is now $580, $550, $580. They're over $500 now. And we could go down this deep rabbit hole with knives like McNeese or Chris Reeve or Hinderer and talk about like why those cost $500, $600, $700, $800. But then we have another, and this was maybe, I think another very good comparison. This is the Dead Reckon Ridgeback. And it's, I don't know what the steel is on this. It might be LMAX, it might be 20CV, but the point is that they have some aluminum handled ones, very similar to like this ProTech, but they make some that are in the like 140 range, but that's with D2 steel. So the point is that there is a wide spectrum of pricing for American made knives. And while these Leatherman knives feel pretty expensive for what they are, I wouldn't say they're egregiously expensive or overpriced. I think where some of that disparity comes from is the fact that you have their most expensive multi-tool ever, which was the Leatherman Arc, and it's priced at $250. So I think it's just a perspective thing. We're not used to seeing knives at this caliber from Leatherman, but that's not to say they're amazing or perfect or worth it. I just don't think they are egregiously overpriced. But even when I was told that they were $300 when we were sitting at Leatherman, I was like, oh, okay, all right. It was a little bit hard to swallow. And I don't know exactly why that is, but it was. It was not what I was expecting at all. We expect multi-tools from Leatherman, so this is a curveball. This is not something people were really expecting. It is harder to justify the price coming from a company that specializes in multi-tools coming out swinging at a, I would say competitive in the sense that it's like a tough pill to swallow price as their first like, hey, we're making knives now, big push into knives. And this is not like a one-off knife like they've done in the past. This is 5 knives. This means they're here, they're serious. I think it's all jarring, but it's jarring because we expect multi-tools and we got something different and also pretty expensive for what we know Leatherman to make. This is pushing the limits of what anybody's ever paid for a Leatherman product. Like Garage Series is the only thing that's ever been close to the price here. And here's a comment saying, shame they are overpriced. IMO, if they were titanium scales, it would be a slightly more reasonable price. It's so interesting that people put so much value into titanium. I love titanium. I'm a self-proclaimed titanium whore, but I don't know that I would say steel isn't worth titanium. Titanium does feel and look more premium. It is corrosion resistant, so it has some value and some characteristics that steel doesn't. It is lighter, but I don't know that steel is like the worst thing ever, especially when you're doing some of the stuff that Leatherman has done with this steel. I'll take it apart and show you, but yeah, they're doing some interesting stuff. I don't know, again, if it's the right thing to do, but they have done some interesting stuff with this knife that nobody else is really doing, to my knowledge. We are waiting for multi-tools from Leatherman. There are hundreds of knife makers. Why have another one doing roughly the same thing, especially at these prices? Leatherman stopped developing multi-tools after the release of the Free line. That's sad. Well, as we know, they haven't stopped developing multi-tools. One thing that I know, and was very clear to me once I visited Leatherman and saw their facility, is how crazy the facility is, how many tools and machines they have. There are hundreds of CNC machines and automation. There's a lot of automation. So when you need to like change and pivot and adapt something, it's not just like take this thing out, put this thing in, and we're running this thing now. It is a surgical operation to change anything. So I get it. I don't even want to know what that would look like. Having to change the operations to accommodate just one small change for a tool. I was told the ARC took 3 years from start to finish to develop. That means like 3 years from an idea to the point of them actually manufacturing it. And they haven't stopped. There are some new multi-tools coming. That was the exact question. So I don't disagree with your question here. Why do we need another knife manufacturer? I asked that exact question of worksharp. I was not excited about a worksharp knife. I was worried about worksharp making a knife because I thought it would suck. And then they proved me wrong. The RMX is sick. It's really, really nice. They knocked it out of the park, but they innovated heavily and they're doing some really cool stuff. Integral handle, swappable pivot, really, really thin 3V, which is awesome. And I think the biggest thing for me is that these aren't groundbreaking. The designs are very, very safe, and they made choices like, hey, let's put steel in the handles instead of something that is widely popular in the market. And I don't think it lands for the knife market at large, but for Leatherman fans, I don't think they're gonna care. As long as they can stomach the price, I don't think they care if it's titanium or steel. And I think that's true of knife buyers worldwide, mostly. The people that are complaining about this are probably a very, very small vocal minority, because we are deep into the knife world. But like my parents, they like knives, they carry knives. My mom carries a knife, my stepdad carries a knife. They don't care if the knife handle is aluminum or what. They don't care. They're still gonna buy it as long as they can justify the price. And that's really where Leatherman exists here, and largely Benchmade also. People aren't clamoring over materials. They like the name. The name has some heritage, it's got some oomph behind it, and that's really what they're buying. That's the truth of it. One of the rare positive comments, I think everyone needs to chill on these knives a bit. I get that we all want a new multi-tool, but don't let the capitalistic dopamine cycle take a hold of you. Be patient. I mean, do we need a new multi-tool? Probably not. We all have too many anyhow. They've made plenty of good tools and now they want to play with knives. So be it. Is the price too high? Probably, but you can blame all the people buying $300 Benchmades or similar who helped create that market space. And to be fair, Magnas usually run right around within $50 of that price. I say Leatherman, go have fun and design your heart out on some new knives. Hopefully the creative process will lead you back to some new great multi-tool ideas / additions for your loyal fan base. Well, that has 0 likes on Reddit. Yeah, I agree with the sentiment. I don't necessarily know that these are the knives for me. I've carried them, I like them, I have complaints, but I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people are saying. And I'm saying that as somebody who has had them for a few weeks. Some of these don't speak to me at all. Some of them do. Last week we were talking about why buy Chinese-made knives. $200 Chinese-made knives are overpriced, and we pretty much proved that that's not the case, that overlook from bigidesign is pretty well positioned in the market. The pricing is pretty on par with everything else, if not just a really good deal. And American-made knives, you're looking at $300 and beyond for titanium frame locks. And in the comments to that video and Ricky's overlook video, there were people saying that we need more US manufacturing. So we have a really strong knife maker, and call it what you will. You can call them a multi-tool maker, but almost every single tool they make has a knife on it. It's not knife first, it's not knife forward, but they have been making blades for decades, and they are one of the biggest companies in the industry. They're trying to take a stab at it, pun intended, and they did fine. I think they did okay. I don't think they knocked it out of the park. Clearly, the consumer reaction has not been overwhelmingly positive or even whelmed. It's pretty negative. And I think the criticism is, for the most part, fair, but we're getting what we asked for. We're getting another manufacturer in the US making a knife in the US and trying to do it even more US based by using steel than a lot of other ones that are focusing on titanium, which is almost explicitly sourced outside the US. So I don't agree that Leatherman should stay in their lane. I think that they should branch out, and they have, and as long as they're not like cannibalizing their multi-tool business and they're doing it as a separate vertical, which they are, with a new facility, which is very big, and they've obviously put a lot of money behind it, as long as they're doing that, not cannibalizing the part of Leatherman that we love and not taking too much attention away from it, which it doesn't seem like they are, I say go for it, right? This is what we asked for. This is what you guys asked for. More USA manufacturing, this is that. They didn't get it right on the first try, and I wouldn't even say this is their first try. They have had several knife models that came out and then quickly disappeared, and these are much better than that. But I say let them try, see what happens, because they have a better position to do something like this than basically anybody else. They are a huge knife company. Call them a multi-tool company if you want, but they've been making knives for decades, and they've been doing it pretty well. Even if the multi-tools aren't, you know, heavily knife focused, they have a knife on them. I'd say they're in a pretty good position to do it right if they listen to the market better than they did before they released these. Just listen to feedback.
So we're gonna be doing a lot of changeovers, a lot of design improvements, a lot of incorporating of feedback, whether they're styling feedback or functional feedback on our knives.
And then we have one more positive comment. This is from someone who lives in India. They said, this is especially great for people like us. I'm from India, where it's hard to find proper knife makers and premium knives are rarely available. The laws around buying or selling knives are unclear, which makes things even more complicated. Yet somehow, big brands like Leatherman are still allowed to sell here. So for me, regardless of the knife's quality, I'm genuinely excited because I know it will at least be a decent knife, and that's already a big deal. That's cool. That's a perspective that I would not have thought of unless I got a DM like this. Like that's a pretty cool concept, and that's also something that I think a lot of people are going to overlook when it comes to Leatherman and making knives. They already have a massive distribution network. They're probably going to be selling outside of markets that most knife manufacturers sell in. That's a whole portion of this knife business that most people are just completely going to ignore and overlook and think, oh, Leatherman's going to fail. They have a baked-in distribution network that will probably make these do all right regardless. We've come to the point where we have to thank the people who make this channel possible, our channel sponsors, and first up we have Worksharp. You guys are asking a lot about the RMX. I've heard from many of you that you're trying to get your hands on one. They restock every Monday at 10 a.m. PST. This coming Monday, they have every version of the drop point, so that is large and compact, gray and black, all of them in drop point will be available Monday at 10 a.m. PST. I also want to thank bigidesign, and they also have a knife out that came out earlier this week. It is the Lookout, one of my favorite fixed blades of all time. This USA made version is in Nitro V. They are available right now. You can use the link down below or the coupon code BDEDC at checkout for 10% off. I also want to thank Carry Commission, which is my company. We have a collection of things that I love, and we call that Carry Commission. It is a curation of all sorts of gear, knives and outdoor gear that I really love and I wanted to bring under one roof for you. We do a lot of collaborations. One of those we restocked this week. That is the ProTech Malibu with this Topo green milling on the handle in Warncliffe in Magna Cut. Those are available, or hopefully still available by the time, or hopefully not. I kind of want them to sell out, but hopefully you can get one. That's what I'm trying to say. Go check them out, and we have plenty of other stuff over at Carry Commission if they have sold out by the time you see this. And finally, Whatnot. It is a live streaming auction platform. We go live a few times a month and sell off all kinds of crazy stuff and get into all sorts of debauchery on a live stream. It's fun, and you can buy things, or not, but you can if you want to. And there's other things available on Whatnot, like trading cards and apparel, and all sorts of stuff. You can sign up for Whatnot using the link in the description down below or this QR code. If you do, you'll get $15 towards your first purchase. All right, now back to the video. All right, so we have all 5 of the Leatherman knives here, and I asked for some questions over on Instagram so I can hopefully answer some of those. We're not doing a full-on review of these knives, but I'd like to answer some of the questions you guys may have. Most of the questions are regarding the folders, not the fixed blades, but I do have some stuff to say about the fixed blades. We're also going to talk about just quick things about them that I think you guys should know. So first up, this is from Jay Betts over on Instagram. Do the scales feel rigid / secure with only what looks like 2 screws? So these are steel. They are steel and they are very, very rigid. You can slightly bend that scale in, but not much. And that's probably from all that pocket milling. There is a ton of pocket milling. Like I said, I will take one of these apart. but it is very, very tough. It feels like a tool. It feels like it wants to be used. It doesn't feel like it wants to be babied. Something I saw, I don't know if I actually saved this, but it was talking about the ergonomics of it. That's one thing I don't love, is how far this finger notch is back from the blade. I would prefer it to have just a little bit more forward. I mean, you're basically cutting out that whole portion of the handle for grip, which is a little bit odd. But I really like the aesthetics of this knife. This one is the Blazer, and I really like this color combination as well. One thing I don't like about this knife is the billboarding. And we mentioned this to Ben and their team. Leatherman right around the pivot with USA here. Magna cut on the front, which is an interesting choice. Leatherman on the back, and then Leatherman also is lasered on the clip. So you have 3 Leathermans and Magna cut on the front, which is an interesting choice. But yeah, it does feel really tough. Both of them feel really, really tough. Next comment, do you think it would have been more competitive if they priced the folders at $200 to $225? Well, yeah. I mean, if you cut $100 off the price and make the same product, yes, it would be more competitive. Are you asking, should they have priced them there? I don't know. I do know that because they're doing some interesting stuff with the milling, why they cost $300. So they are milling these hollow grinds on these blades on a mill, which is not what most people do. Most people are grinding. They're buying grinders, or they're hand grinding, or using a very expensive machine to grind hollow grinds. They are milling the hollows on these knives, which is pretty nuts. Let's just go ahead and take it apart just so I can show you. Both of them are made this way. So hardware is just 2 T8s. That's all you need. And then the set screw for the thumb stud is a T6. And it comes with a tool in the box actually that doubles as a lanyard bead. Pop this off. Why can't I get it off? There we go. All right, so this is how this knife is made. Basically, you have phosphor bronze washers, you have a button, you have the liner, top liner, and you have a clip. So there's 12 pieces total to this knife, but the interesting thing that you might not have noticed is how they're doing this. So this scale, the pivot is actually part of the scale. So the actual raw material that they're using, the billet they're using for the handle, reverse side, not the show side, is actually very, very thick to start with. They are milling all of this away because it's actually got to be thick enough for, there's a fixture mount on the bottom and tall enough for this post. So this block is like 3/4 of an inch thick for the billet that they're milling this out of, which is a massive inefficiency, I would imagine, in terms of manufacturing. But that's one of the reasons I think the cost is as high as it is they're milling this down from a huge piece of stock, and then they're also hollow grinding the blades. I don't know if over time they would increase the efficiency there. I would think so, I'd hope so. But some of the stuff they're doing, like the way that this is nested in here, is pretty clever. Like, that's pretty smart. This button lock is your detent, your actuator for the lock. It's serving multiple purposes, and this thing goes together pretty freaking easy. The clip is reversible as well. Why is that? Oh, the clip. There we go. There we go. I will say the one thing that was very interesting about their choice in the way these are built or designed or whatever is the thumb studs. So they're like almost like a thumb disc, but it is a stud because it's still like within the blade. It's reversible, which I don't know if that's by design or what, but it is reversible. And these studs that you see on this knife have been flipped upside down because it is way easier to deploy the knife if you flip the studs upside down. This one is not flipped upside down, and it still works, but it's easier if you flip it upside down. I just got this one in today and I have not flipped a stud, but as you can see, it still works, but I think it works better if you flip it the other way. All right, the next question is about the action. Ricky's video didn't make it look promising. They never have had decent detents. So I think out of the box, what you can expect from one of these knives is action very similar to a Leatherman multi-tool, like the arc. So you can flick it open, but it really wants to be pressed down, right, back into place, kind of like the arc. I can tell you now, that'll be the one thing that the first thing people say.
Yeah.
They wanted to.
They won't drop shut.
You know, we considered that, but like the ones like the Wii knives or whatever, the ball bearing knives, they feel more like fidget toys than serious tools to me. And so for me, it was more about like I wanted the Leatherman knife to be truly a working tool and reliable and last 25 years or more. It's probably a family heirloom. It's not a fidget toy.
Right.
So we use phosphor bronze bushings in there rather than ball bearings. It was actually design protected to use ball bearings, and we experimented with ball bearings, and it just didn't. It doesn't even cost more to put ball bearings in there, quite honestly. It just didn't have the feel of a real tool.
I have tuned them, and even though they said we make tools, not toys, we don't want them to be fidgeted with, I have made it a little more fidgety. It takes some getting used to, but I polished the washers because it needed it, personally. If you want to make them kind of drop shut, at least flick it shut more than anything. Ricky's is more set up how they wanted it to be, but it's fairly smooth. I wouldn't say it's like Sabinza smooth. It doesn't feel quite as hydraulic as a CRK, but it can be improved. If you just loosen the pivot a little bit, polish the washers, you can kind of flick it. Flicking open is easy, but flicking closed is a little bit more, I don't know, with practice. How do they compare to Benchmade? They seem too nice to use and abuse. I'm gonna go back to what I said, like in terms of like how tough it is, I don't know. I mean, it's steel versus like say aluminum on this one, so it's heavier, it feels more like a tool, but I mean, they're both, you know, $300 knives-ish, and I think they're both about the same in terms of toughness and usability. The big question that some people have is about the heat treat on this MagnaCut, which is 60 to 63. That's a fairly wide range for HRC. Typically you see like 62 to 63, not 60 to 63. But MagnaCut typically does better when it's taken higher. And this is also fairly thin. Since it's a hollow grind, it's a fairly thin grind on that MagnaCut. So I don't know. I don't know in terms of durability. I've not had any issues, but also this one's a few hours old in my possession, and I've not carried this one as much because we'll talk about another flaw really quickly. The Glide doesn't have this issue because it's a hollow grind and that saber is really high. So when this closes, there's plenty of clearance on both sides of the blade, right? So if you're looking in there, down towards the tip, there's plenty of clearance on either side of the blade. This one, the Blazer, that blade is almost touching the scales or the handles on either side when it's closed. And when you open it, here, let me, it's not as bad if you use the rear stud, but almost no matter what you do, it's going to scrape when you open and close it. Closing is not as bad as if you flick it, but it bugs me. It bugs me a lot because otherwise this knife would be actually really, really, really nice. I like this knife. That right there makes it really tough for me to like, I don't know why. It's just like the metal on metal feels like nails on a chalkboard, and I think it's because the way that the milling is makes it kind of gritty. That's really my biggest complaint about this knife, is that the thumb studs come upside down, in my opinion, and the action's not like buttery smooth, but I'm okay with that. I don't really care if it's drop shutty, if you want to say that. That is the biggest complaint I have about any of these knives, is just that. The crunchiness when it opens and closes. What are your thoughts between the Glider versus the RMX? It's a very interesting question because there were a lot of people who didn't like the idea of the RMX because it is button actuated only. There's no other way to open it. On paper, they're pretty similar, but you got 3V versus MagnaCut. You have a globally sourced American assembled knife versus an American made knife, and it's half the price. So you're talking about something that's not made here, but it is assembled here and sourced all over the globe, and then you have something that is made here that costs twice as much. It's tough to say if that's worth it. That's a question you have to answer for yourself. Do you want something that's American made? Does that matter to you? Or do you want something that's a better value? This is a better value. I think it's, as far as a knife goes, I think it's a little bit better done. My least favorite thing about the RMX is the clip. I think it's a little too thin. I don't like it. But other than that, this knife is really, really nice. And I don't love something that's button actuated only. But I do like the RMX, and I love this blade. That really thin, slicey, very thin flat grind 3V is what makes this knife. And the handle, it's so freaking lightweight. This whole thing is super lightweight. I don't hate the Glider. In fact, this is the one I carried. I had to get a replacement because I had a warped blade, and I do like this knife. I think just for $300, it deserves a little bit more polish. And it's not bad. It's just there are a couple of things that I know if you're spending $300, you're not going to want to polish the washers on yours. Like, I don't think you're going to want to do that. I don't think you should have to at $300. But something you're getting with this knife that I haven't talked about is a lifetime warranty. That same warranty that Leatherman offers for their multi-tools applies here, and they have free lifetime sharpening on MagnaCut blades. So that applies to all of these knives. I don't know if that matters to you. The RMX also comes with a great warranty. So it really comes down to, do you want to spend twice as much for something made in America, or do you want something that is globally sourced, assembled here, is still providing jobs for Americans? And in my opinion, I think a better product, a little more refined and polished, that's my take. I think the glider is good. I think it's fine. I think some people will be disappointed when they get it in hands and it's not, you know, a tool that or a toy that they can flip open and closed. But as a knife, it functions. It's a good knife, but I do think the RMX is a more polished product. The Arc with 20 plus tools, plus a MagnaCut knife, $250, just a knife, $300, like what? All right, so this is a very common question or comment that I've seen regarding these Leatherman knives. And the difference here is that the Leatherman multi-tools are mass produced. And we're talking in units of tens of thousands, and they are making tens of thousands of parts a day, right? They are cranking out parts because they're stamped, right? The tools are stamped, like everything is stamped and automated. You've got robot arms grinding the edges of your pliers. Like it's a crazy facility to see, but everything is very, very automated or done en masse. Whereas the knife factory across the street is a warehouse with, I think there's like 12 CNC machines in there. So it's still done largely on a machine, but they are hand finished. So they're ground on the machine, they're hand sharpened, they are assembled. And a lot of this finish work, like the Cerakote, and whether you care or not, them knocking the Cerakote off the edges, all is done by hand. So this is a lot more hands-on than the multi-tool. They're milled, they take a lot more time. Like a multi-tool, I don't know what the figure is start to finish from like each individual piece being made and all the processes it goes through. But largely that is very, very automated, where this one handle is gonna take, I think I was told like, maybe it was 14 hours, but it was a very long amount of time for just a few handles. So as far as scalability and the amount of units being made goes, the Arc is being made hand over fist, many, many multiples more than these knives. And that's what it comes down to. All right, last question. Dude, why don't they bring back the squirt? The people demand it, pliers forever. Honestly, one of the first questions I asked Ben Rivera and also Billy at Leatherman, when are you guys gonna make a power pint competitor? When are you gonna bring back the juice? Where's the squirt? The answer was basically crickets. So I don't know if anything's coming as far as a small multi-tool. I also wish, I asked when the Leatherman Mini would come back. I love small multi-tools, and I also wish I had an answer for that one. I do not, unfortunately. So I do know that the multi-tool coming down the line, pretty sick. So there is at least that. All right, so here are all 5 knives. We have the Blazer, the Glider, the Russell, the Track, and the Pioneer. And of all of these, without a doubt, my favorite one is the Russell. And I think that's actually pretty much the sentiment I've seen online. My first reaction to them, again, I said my reaction to the folding price was, wow, that's more than I would have expected. The fixed blades, I really felt that way originally, but once I started looking at some competitive knives, I don't think that's the case at all. So let me explain. The very first reaction I had was, wow, this is $300. This Pioneer is $300. This TJ Schwartz LT5 is $200. It's $195, and that's a really big jump to go from something like this, also made in America, in Idaho, to this, made in Oregon for $300. The difference here is that this is MagnaCut and this is A2. It's a tool steel and it's Cerakoted. But given an option, my money's going to the LT5 pretty much every time. This is a tank of a knife, and this one's nice, but it doesn't move the needle for me nearly as much as the LT5. The ergonomics are better, it just feels better, and it's $100 cheaper and still made in America. So is MagnaCut the right steel for a big honking fixed blade like this that you're gonna be chopping and hacking with? I don't know, it doesn't matter to me. I'd rather have something like this that I'm not gonna care as much about because it's a little cheaper and frankly, just a little bit more refined. That's the only thoughts I have about the Pioneer. And then let's come to the Track. Again, this one doesn't really move the needle for me a ton. I think it's a decent looking knife. I don't love the colors of really many of these. These two, I love the colors of actually, but the rest I'm just like, I don't know, black handle on a knife like this. Big handle, small blade. I prefer a little smaller blade and a bigger handle. I've always said that. And the first comparison I made in my head for the track was the Chris Reeve backpacker, because you've got a similarly sized fixed blade made in America. This one's also in Idaho. They're both hollow ground. So that is something kind of rare in a big knife like this. But when it comes down to it, we have two knives that are made very close to one another. One by a really, really super reputable company. This is $300. This is $300. The big benefit, really the only major benefit of buying this Leatherman knife would be the warranty. Your Chris Reeve warranty is decent, but they basically, if you break your knife or something like that, like you're on your own. Leatherman, if they are following the same warranty they have for their multi-tools, if you break it, they're gonna fix or replace it. And you have lifetime sharpening. So you do get some perks, but as far as refinement and quality of the product goes, it's gotta go to Chris Reeve, and I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. And that is where the disparity for me comes from, is like, it's not bad. It's just, you can get a better knife for the same price in a lot of places. All right, and then we have what I think is actually the best offering from Leatherman Knives, and that is the Russell. This thing is lightweight, it's thin, it is a really nice idea for a camp chef knife and a camp utility knife. Like, I like this a lot. The first comparison that comes to mind is also from Schwartz Knives. It would be the Overland, and it's, you know, because they're both kind of that sheep's foot style, they can double as a camp chef knife or be used to kind of beat and hack on things. This one's a really thin blade stock, which is why I like it, but that does affect your toughness as far as like what you're gonna do with it. But this, I think, is the most reasonable and best knife offering from Leatherman out of this bunch. It is really, really nice, and this one will probably live in my Alucab, to be completely honest. Like, I have no complaints about this knife. The price, the fit and finish, this knife is really good. I don't have anything else to say. It's a little bit cheaper. It's really, really thin. It's ground well. The plunge is good. Like, everything about this is great, and I love the colors. Like, absolutely awesome from Leatherman. And just as a little aside, like, I thought my initial reaction to the fixed blades being a little overpriced, we have this, which is also a pretty decent EDC style fixed blade from an American company, and this is 300 bucks. Right around that same price point, so I don't think they're overpriced. I think it goes back to what we were talking about, pricing disparity because we expect something else from the company. But I don't think $300 is outrageous for these knives. I do just think there are better offerings at the same price point. So then that brings us to the knives, and I kind of feel the same way. Like, they're not bad at all. There are a few complaints that I actually have about them, and there are some things that I would definitely change. The action is not great, but that's their choice. They chose to make these a little more hydraulic, a little more like a tool. And they do feel like tools. They're just not gonna be your fidget toy. You can probably modify it to make it a little more fidgety like I've done, but even then, it's not like the most fidgety thing in the world. But that was their choice. This is what they desired. So the biggest complaint for me about the knives, the folding knives, is that sound, that scraping of the handle. Just, oh, it's like nails on a chalkboard. And then having to flip the thumb studs the opposite direction just so they flick a little better or grip a little better. Other than that, I think they're fine. I think for $300, you can probably find something better. But if you are a Leatherman fan, I get it, because I carried this knife right here and I just looked down and I was like, man, that does look good. Leatherman on a knife looks good, but maybe with a little bit less billboarding. I personally am hopeful that Leatherman can kind of refine what we've got here. I do think that with a little bit of fit and finish and polish, both of these knives, the Blazer and the Glider, could be very good. I don't think they're bad. With just a little bit extra, they could be pushed over the edge to be a very good option. So that's where I land on the Leatherman knives. Next up, we have the community carry of the week. This one comes from Yrving Isaac, or Yrving Isaac over on Instagram. In this photo, we have a NAFS Lander 4 with a Raylight Pineapple Mini Mark II in brass, as well as a bigidesign Pocket Pro, also in brass, a Field Notes memo notebook that is inside an Artisano Triste Field Notes leather cover. He also has a Havoc EDC brass bottle opener. Oh, that's on top of the Hank, which is a Spartan Hank's Mini Hank. There's also a Artisano Triste Lander sheath for that Lander 4, and I believe that is everything in the photo. He says, I wanted something with a clean view. I like the way brass and micarta looks combined and also the touch of the leather sheath. He's possibly said he's looking for some brass scales for the Lander 4. I did some really quick searching and I don't think those exist, unfortunately. Although, if you ask really, really, really nicely, Ben might make them for you by hand personally. Don't hold me to that. Love you, Ben. This is my way of seeing if Ben actually watches these, because he called me this morning. He's like, I watched your deep cuts. Not all of it, but I did watch one. I like it. That's what he said. Thanks, Ben. Love you too. All right, now we're down to the part where I show you what's inside my pockets in 60 seconds or less. First up, we have something that honestly finds its way back into my pocket pretty often. This is my own knife, the Civivi Klingman. You should buy one if you haven't already. And if you have, buy another. I also have my other knife in my pocket, just, you know, all self-promos today. This is the Tactile Knife Company Red Hawk. This honestly has been a very common combo for me. Klingman and Red Hawk, I think it's the perfect combo, fight me. Same wallet I always carry, which is the Rustic Heirloom Carry Commission Hitchhiker wallet in Honeycomb. Same multi-tool, same light. We have the SOG Power Pint and the Lumentop Frog with the extension tube. I'm also carrying a different pin. This is actually the Tactile Turn / Zero Feud / Best Damn EDC collaboration mini or slim bolt action. These haven't been made in a long time, but that I just felt like grabbing that and throwing it in the pocket. I still have this Tetra 292 from Funky Forager Industries. And then finally, the RZE UTD 8000 on the wrist. And I think that's everything. That's it. Oh, I do have the leather sheath for the Red Hawk if you care. That's the best way to carry it, in my opinion, from Chattanooga Leatherworks. That's my carry. Moving on. For those of you at home who don't know, we have an editor now. His name is Ilya Petrov. He is a godsend, honestly. He's a saint because he deals with me and all the ramblings and deals with all the stuff that you guys don't have to see. So he makes all these videos much more watchable than they would be otherwise. So thank you, Ilya. Thank you so much. We've missed you. All right. So last week we had 2 giveaways. So I drew the winners for those giveaways. One of them was provided by Leatherman. Since we were there, they gave us a Leatherman Wave to come home with to give to you guys. So this is a Leatherman Wave Plus. The winner of that, which you had to comment with a specific hashtag that was only found in the EDC Weekly newsletter. The winner for that is Lecky Baines 6917. He says, multi-tool all the way. I value their compactness and convenience over a multiple tool combo carry, but personally I don't really need to use a lot of tools in my day-to-day, and I can see why other people might find the value of the latter hashtag pocket tools. So you are the proud new owner of a Leatherman Wave Plus that you can continue to not carry in your pocket every day. And then finally, I lost the Up the Ante. There's no Up the Ante this week. We just had way too much to talk about. But next week we will do another one. But last week I lost, and you guys won a Chaves Ultramar 229 Kickstop micarta. So Chaves was actually nice enough to send out the exact one that I didn't want to get rid of. So you can thank Chaves Knives for this. The winner of this one is Greg Nunamaker. We randomly chose a comment for this one. It could have been any comment. It just happened to also be one that followed the rules of the newsletter. He said, never carried a multi-tool, always a Cobra and a Victorinox combo. Interesting, the opposite. I more favor a Victorinox Rambler and separate pocket knife these days. Carry always changes, and I'm up for anything, especially lightweight multi-tools that can supplement a knife. Well, you have a not so lightweight knife that you can supplement even heavier tools with now if you'd like. This is the Kickstop, and it's a chunky knife, but it is really, really sick, so congratulations. And then finally this week we are giving away a Riff Raff courtesy of We Knife. So this is the We Knife Riff Raff, and if you would like to win this knife, the instructions are in your inbox if you're a subscriber to the EDC Weekly newsletter. If not, too bad, you missed the boat. You'll have to sign up so you can get in on future giveaways, but go check your inbox if you are signed up. The instructions on how to enter are there. That is it for this deep cuts. This is the most unhinged deep cuts ever. I have 800 knives on my desk and a brain that is truly fried. So thank you for all the comments, the input, the feedback, and for you guys watching this video. I'm glad you like the deep cuts. We are going to continue to evolve it and make it more fun and interesting for you guys. Look forward to making these, even though they are getting to be wild to put together. I do really enjoy it. So thank you guys for making this community so awesome and making this community show work. Again, I missed the community, so I'm glad to be back. Thank you guys again. There is an audio only podcast of this. If you want to just listen to it in your commute, you can find that anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can also listen here on YouTube if you'd like, because it is designated as a podcast here on YouTube. Also, just go to edcw.co and submit your carry if you want to be featured in future episodes. All right, that's it. Bye.